Welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. My name is Austin Chadwick, and co-host is always Chris Lucian. And we have a fun short topic here called the Ship of Theseus regarding teams. Chris, can you intro us to this?
Yeah, so this is my maybe biggest argument for good practices, unit testing, refactoring, everything like that. And specifically unit tests as a communication device. So, take some time to read up on the Ship of Theseus, but it's kind of this idea, I'll read a little bit from the wiki here. In the metaphysics of identity, the Ship of Theseus is a thought experiment that raises the question of whether a team, right, in our case, that has had all of its people replaced remains fundamentally the same team, right? And so there's a number of conversations I've had where people on a product say, oh well, the people that came before us messed this piece of the product up or something along those lines. And so there's this idea that the people that came before are not part of the same team that you're on currently. And so I always bring up the story of the Ship of Theseus because it's if every plank of wood on the ship has been replaced, is it the same ship? Like if every person on the team has been replaced, is it the same team? And I would propose it is. And so this is kind of goes to this idea that you should always pay it forward to the people that come ahead of you and understand from the people that came before you that they were doing the best that they could with the tools and knowledge that they had, right? And so kind of the retrospective prime directive sort of stuff, right? And so in the paying it forward, there's this idea that, writing unit tests will communicate intent to the future, whether it's you and you've forgotten and now come back to your same code and have to remember, or if it's a person that's been hired long after you left the company. You have this connection that bridges you between the people that have been on the product. And many products that I work on today, I've never met the people that started those products. And so I find it a really interesting topic. And so if you treat your product as the Ship of Theseus and you again kind of work with that identity that the ship remains the same ship, even though every plank of wood has been replaced over long periods of time. Every person on the team has, since left and been replaced, then you still kind of temporally maintain this bond with all these other people that were there before you and that come after you. And a lot of these software products, they last decades, and we're likely coming on centuries of software, over time. And so maybe in 30 years, we'll have kind of the first century-old still operating systems out there, right? And so this idea that it has this like temporal life cycle is just really important to me. So I don't know, Austin, what do you feel about it? How do you?
Yeah, I have one response to it, that something that comes to mind directly in line with what you're saying, and then I had a different take on the Ship of Theseus, which just kind of coming at it from a different angle. But from what you're talking about, reminds me of this talk. I'll put it in the show notes. But he was talking about working with legacy code, and he made this whole Indiana Jones like allegory where it's like, you're digging through the caves and you have like a guide with you, and the legacy code is like the hints telling you where to go. And I think to make it less, you want it to be not a horror movie for the future ship, right? The future planks, the future team members, right? You want it to be maybe somewhat of an adventure, but a guided adventure, where the unit tests or the pipeline or, whatever you leave in the product is basically leaving artifacts for the future Indiana Jones on the team to discover and hopefully make it a fun adventure, not a horror movie for the future ship. So that's one take on it, is to think of it almost as like you're leaving artifacts that you want to be extremely readable, right? Finding an artifact, that so-and-so was the, governor of this part of Rome is very clear, right? Finding an artifact of like a half broken, badge that person wore is less clear, but you know what I mean? So what think about what you're leaving in the ground, so to speak, for the future team. And then the second take I had was almost kind of like a team chaos engineering take, which is, hey, at any point, I think it's extreme to think that tomorrow the team's going to be completely different, right? So you don't have to go that far. But what we're doing now, are we leaving enough breadcrumbs or artifacts such that if several planks were replaced, do we have enough context to continue, right? And so, you can think about that from day to day. Are we leaving enough context for another team, maybe with everybody except one person still left? And then you can think about it long term from more big picture architecture perspective. But to kind of think like, put on the chaos monkey hat, if there could be such a hat. I'm trying to imagine one right now, and play the devil's advocate on what if many planks were replaced right now? How much context and knowledge would we lose? And what practices, unit testing, mobbing, things like that would help with that problem. So
and again, it's that team has this connection to the team in the future, and so people have to think about it as kind of being on the same team, not only with the people that you're on the team with now, but the people that you're on the team with in the future, and the people that you're on the team with in the past, even if you've never met them. And so if you have that philosophy, then I think you start thinking a little bit differently about your code, and you can kind of start making longer term decisions. Some of the worst damage can be done by somebody that's kind of on their way out and just doesn't care and needs to meet their next deadline, right? And so it's really important to ensure that the thought the team, the thought of the team is very much, it's the project of Theseus, I think, maybe it is, or the product of Theseus, right? It's the product that Theseus worked on into the battle, right? And so this idea that everybody had a part in it and we're working together, and so that they should make it maintainable and understandable and pay it forward and respect the past, and in that and in the current moment make good decisions based on the knowledge from before and after. I think it's really nice, especially when I can talk about it with people that are just like, oh well, this is not going to be the same team, or other things along those lines. And so yeah, I don't know, I just like the concept.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one last thing before we close here is I think even down to the words you use day to day can help model this, right? So I've even noticed, I used to say like, oh yeah, the previous mob, they left this problem, or they left us this good thing, right? But even that language assumes like this disconnect, right? Like we're different ships. And I've been starting to use like more like, oh, well, this team 2 years ago, right? Or we 2 years ago, but, and I'm not sure the right word yet, but ways to talk that kind of live out that prime directive, as opposed to kind of like, shoving blame into the past, right? And so I think there's ways you can talk with your team that help in an embedded, implicit way communicate this message as well, as opposed to like us and them kind of talk.
Yeah. We just all refer to each other as planks.
Planks, yes. There we go. The previous planks. Yeah. All right. With that, like and subscribe. We'd love to hear feedback on this one. And what are ways that you have helped the ship maintain its integrity through different planks being changed out? So we'd love to hear that. Until next time, have a good one. And bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.